Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about being a senior, so let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, is getting to know how to get the right information and seek support when necessary an important part of being a senior software engineer? Well, I would say that that's that's an important part of being a human. But yeah, sure, you can say that. It's a important part of making your way through a world where you don't know everything, I would say, because literally this can apply to anybody. The thing that is important usually for a senior is to do this, which is incidentally the same thing that is important for being successful, is to get results. That's what's important. And that is, I think that's one of the things that I struggle the most with when I train or manage quote-unquote seniors. I'm doing quotation marks, but you can't see them because I'm guessing I'm going to put another of those walking videos over this. But I'm making many quotation marks about senior because quote-unquote seniors who can't understand that some of the problems that they're facing, such as not knowing exactly how an API works, not knowing the documentation, or etc., and having to have a meeting or do go and sit down with another team or another stakeholder or a domain expert and learn things that are not code specific, is part of getting those results. Now, what I call a true senior is the sort of individual who, as I've said before, guys, these are people who are an insurance policy. These are the people who will get the job done, regardless of what it is. And these people understand that sometimes it's not possible. A lot of the times it's unfeasible for you to just kind of sit and say, "Hey, I don't know how this thing works," and then leave it at that. You have to go and check stuff out. You sometimes have to schedule meetings. Sometimes you have to make presentations. You have to do things in order to get the results that you need, and that comes with you understanding what makes things move within your environment. And sometimes it is as simple as, I don't really know how this thing should work. I need to find somebody who does. And then your job stops being about coding and it becomes, go and find the person who knows the thing that I need to know. It's that simple. And that is sometimes not something that, I know developers who don't want to work that way because they want to have usually a more streamlined process where they have one person they have to talk to, which is the product owner, who is supposed to know everything else. And in a perfect world that is how it works, but the reality is that that's not the case. Usually the reality is that the vast majority of product owners who are not domain experts can't really help you much more than to answer the basic questions related to the functionality they are looking for. But if you're looking for other things than that, it's a joint effort, as I like to say. It's something that you're going to have to collaborate on because some tasks are beyond the product owner and you're going to have to do it yourself. Classic one is there's an API. So the product owner might be able to tell you what he wants you to build, or he or she, and you are going to try to build that thing, but they don't know if you, let's say that you do an integration or something like that, they don't know what systems that you need to connect to or so forth and so forth. I usually tell my product owners, the other day they asked me how can I improve my story cards, and I said include 3 things at all times. Start with that. That's going to make a big difference. Number 1, this is a checklist basically. Make sure that all of this is always there. Number 1, what does the UI look like? In other words, create a visual representation of the thing that you want to happen. That's it. Just start with that, because that's apparently not obvious to everybody, which I think is hilarious when you're asking people to add functionality or add a button, add a function piece of a widget or something like that to this page. If the developers don't know what it looks like, if they can't see it, then how can they progress? Unless they're going to do the thing that a lot of In some cases, which happens, you have to guess, you have to sort of figure it out yourself, which is great. Not that many developers like to do that. Well, unless they're like diehard UX fanatics. Second thing is, what data do we need for this thing? Like, show the data. What is going to be shown? What information? What does it represent? What does the data mean? Like, what do you want to get on the page? Because it's almost always a matter of like, what is actually going to change within the system? What is going to be executed? What's going to be displayed on the page, etc., etc. Third and lastly, who knows the most about the domain, or either like where the data is coming from, or like the action that's going to happen, depending on what you're going to do with the feature. Like, who is a knowledgeable person that you can contact with further questions related to the feature and the domain logic. These three things should, that without exception, as I've told them, be on every story card. Because if it's not, it becomes almost impossible for the software developer, regardless of if it's a senior or not, to figure out all of this. But you're always going to find that that's not going to be enough. There is no, like, I've never practically, it does happen, but it's very rare that you create like a new, especially the bigger features, a new feature without having follow-up questions. Even if you groom and prepare and like refine the stories and so forth, you're gonna have follow-up questions. And so having this kind of having the idea that you have to go and find some information yourself is a very big part of that, because as I was mentioning with my little checklist there, that these things are things that your PO might be able to give you, but how to connect to the API, where that documentation is, etc., etc. That's why you need the contact person. That's stuff that you're going to have to figure out by yourself, because it's like at some point you're going to have to accept that the product owner is not an engineer. So figuring out everything for you, well, that's not going to work. And you're probably not going to be very effective at solving a lot of issues until, at least especially when you get up to the higher levels. Like when you're getting to a serious senior level position, I can tell you that the most of what you do, that is like your primary function, is to know how everything works. That is literally I can take myself, guys. I spend more time like just explaining and like telling people, or like coaching, like everything from product owners to software developers to QAs to, like, just the other day I basically had I had it up to here, and I'm holding a hand now above my eyebrows. I had it up to here with trying to explain to a fresh a DevOps engineer how to configure Kubernetes so that we could make progress on the thing that we were working on. So I finally just did the nicest quote-unquote thing I could do without like sacrificing more time, which was write the fucking thing for him, create a pull request, and kind of present it as this is just my idea on how you could solve it, and hopefully either they're going to just merge that thing or he's going to use it as reference. And all of that stuff, I had to, it's not like I knew exactly how the infrastructure was working, but I had to go and basically learn the setup of what he does full time in order to be able to do that, because I could not convey to him, or he was unable to execute effectively without me doing something like that. And that is the sort of ability you're going to need if you're going to make it up to like the levels where you're basically in charge of everything around the software development process. So what I want you to take away from this is that I would say that finding information and looking for support and connecting with people and so forth, this is such a fluffy, broad question that it's almost, it can be applied to practically any human being, just as being able to bring results can be applied to anybody who wants to be successful at anything. So I will agree, yes, this is important, but the thing that I'm trying to make you sort of understand, guys, is that if you want a shot in hell to be considered a true senior, not like a senior in the terms of, like, as I was saying, like the dilution has gone to the point now where anybody who has 5 years of experience is quote unquote as a senior level developer. And my guess is that that's going to continue. That's why we're inventing higher levels now, where we have like staff engineers and principal engineers and so forth, where we're trying to even add even more layers on top, which, as I've said before, guys, it's my belief, it's my personal belief that the reason why we're doing that is because the industry is trying to face a serious problem, which is that we don't have enough holistically good software developers, strong profiles, true seniors, the sort of people who, as I said, they're not just backend or just front end. They literally can run the entire company if they wanted to, or they can run every department. And if you want to be one of those people, which is this where you get the, you know, that's where you're applicable for basically any position at any company, and you're going to get paid outlandish amounts of money for your work. And you can become you can transition into anything at that point. You can run your own company without any effort, basically. That level, you get to that level by doing this thing, as I was saying, where you realize that software is a process. There's an ecosystem of things going on, and if you want things to happen, you have to understand how to go and figure that out. That's why I suggest to people, it's usually, unless you want to specialize really hard into one like a very specific area, it's usually better for your long-term career to realize that there's a whole setup. That's why I tell the front-end developers that no, you can't just learn CSS, HTML, and JavaScript because that code is going to be run in an ecosystem, and your setup might include all kinds of stuff that you didn't think that you needed to know, like Docker, CI pipelines, automation testing, etc., etc. All that stuff is there because it's around your code. And the more you realize that there's stuff around, and the larger your scope of how much stuff is around that code, the likelier you are to be able to do the thing that I'm talking about. And you only get there by doing exactly the thing that the question was about. You're going to have to look for things, you're going to have to connect with people, you're going to have to continuously educate yourself, and on a case-by-case basis, in many cases, learn things about other systems that you didn't really think that was necessary, or even in some cases go and just take on the product manager hat and sit and talk to other teams to see if you can figure out how they do work. These are the things that you do in order to become what I call a true senior. Have a great day.